Jerry Page Bend when I was 11 years old. We stayed there 2 years, and we moved then right in Trafford, in what is a Methodist parsonage now. And we lived there for about 4 years in part of the Methodist parsonage. They're using it for parsonage now. And I went to school to Trafford. Then we moved over on the hill, which is our home place now, for Gideon's. And I don't remember, we stayed there about 4 years. I drove the buggy to Trafford 2 years to school, horse and buggy. And I drove to Warriors 2 years and a half. What time the bus couldn't run. It was part of the time the bus run, but the roads were so bad back then it'd get the bus to just mar out and it couldn't go no further. And then we moved on up to Blunt Springs. Of course, we lived there at Trafford, and my daddy sawmill, and I helped at the sawmill and did gin and the planer mill and shangle mill and worked at anything that was to be worked at. Then we moved off up to Bangor, and my daddy bought some timber up there, and we went up there and lived about 2 years. There's where he died. And I went to school to Hayden, chalked a train at Garden City, at Bangor, and rode to Hayden to school a year. And that my daddy died while we was there. And we moved back down just across from where my trailer is now, in a little shotgun house. And while we lived there, me and Tom married. We had been going together before we moved down there. By slipping around, my mama didn't want me to go with nobody. But my daddy was still worse, so I guess everything worked out. All right. And then me and Tom married. And we lived up on the mountain where it's Smoke Rise now, but it was his daddy's home then. We lived up there a year, and then we moved all around over what's called Smoke Rise now. Let's see. Then we moved to Sibleyville and stayed there and he worked at the brickyard till Aunt Jane was born, and he worked at the brickyard at Sibleyville. Evelyn was born. Then we moved off up in the Roy house, but it was an old log house then. Right across from where my trailer is, you know where Roy's house is. Mm-hmm. And Emmerdine was born there. Then we moved back to Sibleyville, and Evelyn was born. And Harold was born down there. Let's see where we live in Parsons. I can't recall now where we lived in Parsons.
Was you living, Horace was born in Trafford, wasn't he?
Yeah, Horace was born in Trafford at my mother's home because the road was so bad the doctor couldn't get on what is Smoke Rise now, but it's Bryant Mountain then. And then when he was about 14 days old, I went back home and we lived there till, let's see, what did we do? I can't recall that. Then we moved up about halfway between Hayden and where my trailer is, and a little old house down on the creek, and made a crop there. Then we moved back in a little old house right where the Steve Jet house is built now. It was a little shotgun house. And I forget how long we lived there. Then we moved up above Hayden. on, you ready now? We moved to Henry Hayes' and stayed there 3 years. And I worked in the field all the time, all of us worked. And then we went to Rob Holt's and stayed 2 years. And then we moved back to Henry Hayes' and stayed 2 years. That made 5 years at Henry Hayes'. And we farmed, worked, all of us worked, broke over and anything that come along. Then I don't remember just where we moved from, but anyway, the children had grown up. We moved back out. Well, Imogene, we moved over to Pinckney Armstrongs. We lived there 5 years, and I say Imogene married, and then Evelyn finished school, and the boys was getting grown then, and they eventually all married off. Well, before they all married, we moved back down to the Dutton place and started a crop. There was aiming to, and so Harold got married, and Horace had gone to work with old man Lee and well drilling. And of course, Tom was working at the brickyard. And I couldn't farm by myself. So we quit farming. I worked out all the time. I'd pick cotton, hoe, or anything. And when I was 55-year-old, I'd take 315 pounds of cotton a day. Of course, it's pretty hard work to do, but I did. So then, we lived over at Aubrey Russell's. I don't remember just how long, but anyway, we bought the place where my trailer is now, and we lived there till, of course, that's where Tom passed away. And I stayed on there till 79, I believe it was. And the house had burned in 79, and then we moved the trailer back, and I stayed there in the trailer by myself about 3 or 4 years. And then I left there and come over there where I am now. But I picked cotton from up about Nectar to nearly to Warrior, all up and down.
You pick 350 pounds a day?
I picked, when I was 5-year-old, I picked 315 pounds a day. We was working and picking cotton for Mr. Lewis, and he had a gang of people picking, and so I didn't try to beat nobody that day. I never thought about beating nobody. And so when he weighed up the last time that evening, why, he dropped it down on the ground. He said, well, Miss Hayes, he said, there's one thing. He said, I've never picked cotton as hard in all of my life as I have today. And he said, if you'd have beat me on this last go-round, he said, I had it in my mind never to pick cotton never. But after that,
Can you get your glass of water?
I don't know whether it turned me up or not. After that, then, we moved over there, over to Russell's, and I kept up with my cotton picking. And your grandpa never would let me pick by myself because I could beat him, he'd always pick with me, want to wait with me. But he was at work then, and I was just picking the big, having something to do. I didn't feel like staying at home. You know what I mean? I wasn't satisfied there at work so hard. And I still, one day the boy said, well, I'm going to weigh your cotton now again today. But I didn't try to beat nobody that day. And I went to work way up in the day. I cleaned up the house and then went over there. And your grandpa, when he got off from work, he come and picked me up to go cook supper. And when I weighed up, I had 315 pounds of cotton. So the children was, no, they wasn't all married then. Harold, let's see, I don't remember.
I want you to tell me about your daddy having the log, running the logs.
You want me to go now? Well, we moved down in the river bend, and we've just, the river surrounded us just like a horseshoe. Of course, it wasn't that close together, you know, but just down from the house, well, not far, was the river. You cross the river, and there's a big river hill way up, and you'd cut logs, and you'd have a skidway, they called it, that they put the log down into, and it'd slide plumb to the river. And there'd be somebody down there with a raft and catch that log. They was on a boat. Catch that log and tack a strip on it, you know, with a great long nail, or on each end of it, you see. And they'd catch a big load, and he had a little trailer, you know, with a track. And he'd push that car, let it down in there, and he'd load them logs on it, and then they'd turn on the steam up above there on top of the hill where the sawmill was. And they'd draw that little cart up there, loaded up, you know, rounded up with logs. And they'd unload them and let that little car go back and get another load till they got them all pulled up there. And then he'd saw them on the sawmill.
Now, where was this? Was that between?
That was when we first moved from Rimlock down in the river bend. This logging.
What river is that? Is that Warrior River?
Warrior River. You know, when you cross the bridge of coming from, have you been up there that much?
Going up 79?
Going towards Warrior. Well, after you cross the river bridge, you're going towards Warrior, or just as you get on top of the hill, or you turn right down to your left, and it went right down the river there to where we did live. And Johnny was born down there in the river bend, in the Jerry Page River bend. We had oxen to draw the wagon, and took them oxen to the wagon, load the logs on it, and they'd have a big load of logs, you know, down here, and take a chain and put it up over the wagon, and down over them logs, and hook it down here, and the oxen would pull and draw that log up on the wagon till they got it loaded up, and then they'd chain it down.
Why don't you cut it off and let her think about what she wants to say?
Now,
I said, once you
is it off now?
It's ready.
When we lived at Blunt Springs, I went to Howard College 3 months to finish up some grades. So I'd finished that year that my daddy died. And so, while I went to Howard, I had to stay down there, you know, weeks at a time. And of course, I got acquainted with many of the pretty boys. But I didn't go with them. Only one, just before I quit going there. But my daddy didn't know nothing about it. So one time I had a date one evening, and so I didn't know he was coming to the college. But it just happened that the boy didn't come. So he didn't know nothing about that, you see. But after I went home, well, we wrote letters. I'd have to slip to mail them. Tina Lewis would mail them for me. And so I'd hide them. Tina'd bring them to slip them to me, you know. They'd come in her name. And it's marked to where she'd know it was mine. And so Mama called for her hid them. And so she goes and tells my daddy that I had a bunch of letters in there. And boy, he made me read them letters all before him. Now you think about that. So, time had come up to Blunt Springs where we lived when he died. And he'd come up there one time, but Flynn had come to see Robert, you see. But of course you know that Robert had to come to see. But he wouldn't come no more. Tom said, well, I'm scared of your daddy. And I said, well, I'm not scared of him. But anyway, after he died, one time come Ragger, you know. But Mama didn't like it at all. And so there was another Armstrong boy went with me, Madison Armstrong, or he wanted to. But Mama wouldn't let me go nowhere with him. Daddy wouldn't even, you know, he wouldn't let me even talk to him at all. After he died, I slipped and talked to him. So Mama didn't like it. But the hurtingest thing was having to read them letters that I had received from that boy, you know, in town.
I imagine that would be.
It was. So Mama was just as bad as he was. She didn't want me to go with the Madison Armstrong that I was going with. Had to slip and go with the Now we went to a Christmas play before my daddy died. Me and Eddie was in a play, and I had her fixed just about like her, and her hair struck her on down here, and just laying big rolls. She was a pretty thing, and I made her a beautiful little dress to wear in that play. So Daddy told us, said, now, Nancy, don't you go to that Armstrong boy. And I said, no, I won't, Daddy. And he sent Tully along to tell on me. Well, Madison, he made it up. He'd meet us. We had to go right around a big dairy barn, go basically to go to the schoolhouse where the play was. So he said, I'll wait on your young son in the morning. I said, now you have to go on the young side of it because Daddy's liable to go part of the way. So he told Tully, he said, now, I want you to tell me if that old boy meets us. Yes, to Daddy. So I know Tully wouldn't tell. So we went on, Madison was waiting, and I went on to the play that night. We come back to the barn there, and he waited a wee while. Daddy said, Tully, did you see that old boy? No, sir, Daddy, I didn't see him. Just as, you know, I know Tully wouldn't tell. Robert wouldn't tell on me either. So,
Now you had how many brothers and sisters?
I had 8 brothers, 4 sisters. And there was 8 boys and just me. I was 10-year-old when Eva was born. And when Eva was born, I always thought that was the greatest thing ever come to our house, that little girl baby. And we did make over her like she's a doll. Always have. But I can say one thing, my brothers was all good to me. They didn't fight me like children fight now. You know, 8 boys, 1 girl, so one of them beat me to death. But
Well, I'm sorry, what were their names? You had Tully?
There was Warren as the oldest half brother, and Olive was the next. Then Brother Ellie was the first child of my mother's. And then Billy, and then me. Ellie and Billy and me. And Robert, Arnold, Jesse, and Tully. Then Evie, Yanni, and Gaty. That was the thing.
Okay, what would have been your stepmother, did she,
It was my own mother.
okay, but,
It was Warren and Ollie's stepmother.
okay, did she
Their mother
die?
died.
She died?
Warren and Ollie's mother died. And my daddy met my mother, just a young girl. And he had 2 little boys by his first marriage. And my mother married him with 2 little boys. And then she had 6 boys by him. And then Warren and Ollie's she made 8 boys, 4 brothers.
All right, your daddy's name was
Robert Henry Higginbotham.
Robert Henry Higginbotham, and
Mama.
your mother,
was Victoria Edina. Petty.
Pettit was the last name?
P-E-T-T-I-T was my mother's last name. Victoria Edina Petty.
Alright, what was your daddy's first wife's name?
Ira Graves, his first wife.
Do you remember your grandparents?
Oh, yeah. I remember my mother's parents very well. My grandmother Pettit, she was the sweetest old lady. I just loved her to death. I never did get to be around my granddaddy much, my mother's daddy. And my daddy's daddy was buried in Arkansas. For him when he was just a small child. Grandma brought him, and Aunt Terry Marsh, which was Ed Marsh's mother, brought them back from Arkansas out here.
Tara Marsh
And-
is my grandmother's name.
And there she married, then she married after she come out here. Grandpa Higginbotham was dead and buried in Arkansas. She had another little boy, but he died on the way out here. Before she got out here, you know. And she had to stop and bury him, leave him and come on. Then she married a fellow by the name of Paget after she got out here. And he had been married and he had one boy. And Mama had the boy and the girl, you see. My grandmother had a boy and a girl, which was my daddy and my daddy and his sister, which was Terry Marsh. And then Paget died, and she raised that stepchild that he had, you know, when she married. But she never did have any children by him. But she married again, my grandmother Higginbotham, and she had 4 girls, which my daddy's half-sisters. They was Hattie and Axie, and I and Molly was my daddy's half-sisters.
Okay, that's your daddy's half-sister.
Yeah. But my mother, parents, they had Uncle Jim, Uncle Dal, Aunt Ada, and Aunt Evie, and Uncle Mansell. And the top hat boy was Mansell's boy. Me and the top hat, Mansell, Pitt Wilbur and Petty, his first cousin.
You must have been kids of my grandmother.
It might have been
Because I remember her talking about a Terry Marsh,
Terry.
Aunt Terry Marsh.
Mhm.
They were kin.
Well, that was my daddy's sister, Terry Marsh.
My grandmother was a McKay,
I've heard Aunt Terry talk about it.
Mamie McKay.
And my father's mother lived with us off and on. I can't remember neither one of my step-granddaddies, you know. I can't remember ever seeing either one of them. My daddy taken my grandmother and the 2 youngest girls when I was just a little bitty, just can't remember, taking them and kept them, you know, they had nowhere to stay. And me and Brother Billy, I and Molly would pick on us, you know, they were just young girls. And Billy would rock the chair when they died, they'd sit down the chair on sleep, you see. And Billy would rock the chair. Make them mad, wake them up. So then we both got a whooping. Mama, he'd give us a little thrashing. Because I and Molly didn't want to be bothered. We'd say should have been bothered because they didn't do nothing, didn't even help Mama about the house, you know, just living.
Troy.
Now that was tough.
You are.
Huh?
You are.
Well, she wanted to tell when I was born. I was born July the 6th, 1901.
That was a long time
I'll
ago.
tell you about the first date I've had.
Have you ever been
We went to a picnic. We lived at
I'm
Trafford.
taking.
We lived at Trafford, and the only way we had to go in was in the ox wagon. And my daddy carried us to the picnic that day, and we had a good time. And first boy I ever went with, he wanted to come home with me. We could have walked, but no, sir, my daddy wouldn't let me. He didn't want me to even date him. But he rode in the wagon drawn by two oxen. That's the first date I ever had.
Who was, do you remember the boy's name?
No, I've tried my best to think of his name, and I can't just say my life.
How old were you?
Yeah.
How old were you at the time?
Well, I wasn't over 15.
Uh-huh. You let Jody, you listen, Jody.
Jody don't care to use it. But you see, they didn't allow me a bit of privilege. Like, here I sit, here he sat, and there sat my mother, and there sat my daddy. Get up.
No, tell me what
Gee.
you've done. You had a chance at 15.
Hollering at the steer, gee. Ha! And the old steers just plodding along, the oxen. The big old yoke around in there. The wagon tongue, between them. Did you ever see?
The oxen?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hooked to a wagon.
Shannon, don't put your feet
Oh,
on
I
the
hadn't
couch,
personally, I think like
baby. Shoes on
pictures.
the couch. That's a pretty girl.
Well, I was going to school in Sibleyville whenever I first met you, your daddy, your granddaddy. And he was driving the delivery wagon from the commissary, deliver. Anybody would go there and buy a bill of groceries, put them in that wagon, and he'd carry you home with a bill of groceries. But I was going to school, and I had to cross the creek 3 times before I'd get to school and go right down through the brickyard. And your grandpa, he slipped around the corner of the brick hack, and see me go down through there.
Mama, you can go ahead and tell about Mama crawling on her knees across in front of the camera just then. if you want to.
Maybe even look a couple of years younger. Having tried.
So I had to go right down through the brickyard when I walked, you see, and he'd be behind a stack of brick, and they'd tell it on him. He'd peek in on the ceiling. And so we traded down there at the commissary, it was called. So I had to go and buy everything that was bought. Daddy didn't go on. My mother never went out and made a bill of groceries in her life till they was driving there.
Oh,
And Daddy just depended on me, and I paid the bills, buy. And so I went to school one day. It rained all day long. Them creeks got up for then Robert come to meet me, and we got across one and got to the next one, and it was up till we couldn't get across. And we come back to that one and just did get across. But them creeks met that night. We went on back down to the commissary, well, I couldn't get home. And this is the first time I was ever with you. Grandpa now stayed with him. So we went on down there to the commissary, and the old commissary man said, well, got to get you home somewhere. He said, Thomas says you can carry him around There's a long ways to go around, you know. In a wagon, it took a long time. And so Robert was with me. He'd come to meet me because the water was there. And so he carried, your grandpa carried me home. And he was scared. He was always scared. Tom was always scared, you know, of anything. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't want to go back that night. But we was teetotal strangers to him, you know. But my daddy told him, he said, "You stay all night," and he says, "We'll get you up early enough in the morning," he said, "for you to get back to work. And if it's still bad, well, the children ride back to sit with them." And so he stayed. But just, oh, he was so nervous, you know. He was the bashfulest young man you ever seen. And he couldn't hardly take it, you know, staying first time, you know. So we
Got that on my hands, so it makes the house smell good.
Okay, Mama, you want to tell us about your brothers and sisters and which one were half brothers?
well, I had two half brothers, Warren and Ollie. And you want me to tell when they were born?
Mhm.
Yes, they
Do you know their middle names, or was that their?
Warren Salathia was Warren's whole name.
And he was a Hayes.
He's my half brother.
He was a Hayes also, right?
And Ollie Davis was his full name. My second half brother. There was two half brothers. Then the rest was whole brothers.
Hickenbotham was the maiden.
Right.
I want to say that.
I said, Robert Henry Higginbotham was born, that's my daddy, January the 28th, 1816, died 1923. My mother, Victoria Edina Petty, born October the 19th, 1875, died in 1951. They were married on May the 17th, are you getting? 1896. My father was married in 1996. My previous marriage had two boys, Warren Salathia Higginbotham, Ollie Davis, and their mother died, and then he married my mother, and they had 10 children. George Ellie Higginbotham, born October the 13th, 1887. William Daniel, now these is my whole brothers. William Daniel, born June the 15th, 1890. And Nancy Angeline, born July the 6th, 1901. Robert Henry Higginbotham, born December the 4th, 1903. Paul Arnold was born June the 8th, 1906. Jesse Harrell, June the 29th, 1907. Tully Thomas, April, now these all Higginbotham. The 23rd, 1909. Eddie Hurstein was born August 24th, 1911. Yanni Mae, born June the 7th, 1913. Baby Gady, born February the 17th, 1916. And my father was first married to Ira Graves. My grandmother was Salina Hawkins Lee. Lee was her last marriage. And they came from Arkansas when my daddy was very small. And Grandma had my father and Aunt Terry Marsh, and another little boy. But this boy died on the way out here from Arkansas, and they stopped and buried him. And she came on out here, and then she married Elisha Paget, who had one son by his first marriage. This is my grandmother now, my father's mother. And you want me to tell who died? Paul Arnold was killed in the mines October the 16th, 1922.
Was it a mining accident? A mining accident?
Yeah, killed in the mines, Sipton mines. He was working in the mines at Sipton. And my daddy died then February the 7th, 1922.
What?
1923.
What was the cause of death?
Well, the doctors didn't know. And William Daniel died July the 20th, 1923. And my brother J.C. Harold died August 1926. And mother died on April 18th, 1950. And brother Robert died August the 16th, 1970. Tully died September the 25th, 1971. Ellie, my oldest brother, died June the 8th, 1977.
Do you know of any wars that any of your uncles or your daddy or anybody fought in?
Well, my granddaddy, my daddy's daddy, fought in the Civil War and got wounded, and that's how come he died as early as he did.
Now, this was your granddaddy?
My granddaddy.
Fought in the Civil War?
Mhm.
Do you know where he was when he was killed? What?
No, I don't. But they lived in Arkansas, and I heard them not tell about them killing hogs, and the wolves was getting after them. They had to be careful, you know. They'd smell the meat, and they sent a mess of meat by my aunt to a neighbor, and she just did get on the inside of the house, and the wolf like to caught her.
How about your brothers? Any of them fight in any wars?
Well, Warren fought in World War I, and Billy joined and stayed in the service a while. I don't remember just how long, but not long. But Warren was on the firing line when Armistice was sent.
He was on the firing line.
He was fighting when Armistice was sent. No. And I was on the firing line when the Armistice was signed, and he was very happy. And that was in 1918. I'll never forget when he come home, how proud he was to see me coming home. And Arnold was in service, but he come home on Christmas, and he took pneumonia. And he got well enough to go back before the armistice was signed. But they discharged him before the armistice. Billy. And Brother Arnold was killed instantly in the mines at 6 out there.
Whenever they had the mining accident, were a lot of them killed, or was it just him?
When Billy Arnold got killed,
Yeah, in the mine.
he was the only one that was killed. The rock fell on him in the mines.
Did you have some best friends growing up? Have you got any longtime friends that
Yeah.
are still living?
I've got one still living, but she's unconscious. She knows me when her did the last time. Lodell J was a real good friend of mine. And Irene Lane, that was the best friend I ever had. We just like sisters. And when we lived on the hill and they lived down in the holler from us on the old place, Well, whenever she wasn't up there, I was down there. We
Did y'all
were-
know each other from childhood?
Huh?
Did y'all know each other from childhood?
Well, we was very young when we first met. I don't remember just how old it was, but she's still living, but they tell me that they would doubt whether she had known me or not. They that lived in Texas, I think. But she's the best friend I ever had, Irene Lane. I can remember the first funeral I ever went to in my life. Warren carried me. He had to leave me. I was this small.
And this is your older brother?
Yeah, that's my oldest half brother. He carried me. And I thought that was awfulest little thing, you know, the little baby dying. First funeral I ever went to. And Tully was just a right young baby, and I was scared to death my little brother died.
How about some events that happened in your childhood, some important things, maybe an invention or a president or something
A
like
what?
that? An invention or a president? You
Well,
remember something that occurred?
You know, it wasn't like it is now. You didn't know much about the president. You never heard much. Back when I was a child growing up, you didn't hear nothing about talking about the president, hardly. Most thing you'd hear is, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat, something like that. But people go to church and go for 2 weeks to revivals, go in a wagon. Now, my daddy wasn't very bad, no hand much to go to church, but when he did, go and stay all day, take dinner, you know, and spread dinner, stay all day at the revival. My daddy wasn't much hand to do that, but he did sometimes.
Do you remember Prohibition and different things like that?
Who?
Prohibition, when Prohibition came along and the Depression and everything?
No, they didn't discuss it back when I was a child. I like to do that. Things wasn't so much difference that you couldn't believe it to live in my time coming up and what goes on there.
You didn't have newspapers daily, and
Mm.
did you have newspapers daily and stuff like
Well,
that?
the most papers I ever remember, and I still take it, the Southern Democrat. And my daddy was taking it when I learned how to read. And I'd have to read and spell a word, you know, and tell Mom, what is that, Mom? Read a few minutes, spell another one. And we'd taken it, and I'm still taking it. I think I can't do that thing, Democrat thing.
Did y'all have radios? At what age?
Well, whenever her on Horace was about 14, we got our first radio. And Lord, they thought that was the grandest thing. And you ever hear Howell Silver?
Mm-hmm.
Well, their daddy had let them come out of the field long enough in the evening when we got our radio to hear Howell Silver. Then they had to go back to the field and work the dog.
What about television?
No, I didn't know nothing about television, so I don't know, since I've been married, after our children was gone, I know nothing about that.
I think I remember when y'all got your first TV.
I guess
In my
you-
lifetime.
I guess you
Probably whenever I was a young child, because we had one maybe for a short while before y'all ever got one, if I'm not mistaken. Tell who, was it your mother that was part Indian?
Oh, yes, my mother's part Indian. Her mother was half Indian, and I think she's supposed to be half Indian. But she showed it. My grandmother Pettit showed it. She wasn't, and Grandpa was half Indian.
And this is, were they married, Grandma and Grandpa? Was it
My mother's father and daddy, they was,
both half Indian?
yeah.
What kind were they? Like Cherokee or?
The Cherokee.
And he said someone was of Irish descent.
My daddy was part Irish. He had a lot of Irish about him.
Where was he from? Was he?
From Arkansas.
He was from Arkansas. Do you know when they came to the United States? When his?
No, I don't, but it's back when he was just a young boy.
So he wasn't born in the United States.
No, he's born in Arkansas.
Do you know if his parents came over from Ireland?
No, I don't. I don't know that because, you see, Grandpa got wounded in the war.
Which war is this?
My daddy's daddy.
Which war?
Well, the Civil War.
The Civil War. Do you know what he did in the Civil War?
No, I don't. I know I've heard Grandma tell about him. You know that made them drop salt down, and they'd get that up and have to salt their stuff sometime. I don't know how they done it, but they did. I've heard Grandma say that that war people was coming, they'd take every bite of meat and everything they had, and they'd rub dirt on it. Hide it in the dirt, keep the rebels from taking it from them.
What did your father do for a living?
Well, he mostly sawmill, run a sawmill and gin and grist mill, planer mill and shingle mill during his lifetime, you know. But he followed sawmilling all his life. Oh, he farmed some, we farmed a little bit, not no great deal, but
You said one time you had a patent. What kind of machine or what kind of patent was it on? What?
well, I can't think of the name of the patent that he had, and he had it in the going when he died, you know, the making. He'd been to Washington a time or two on it, and we don't know what went with the patent. Johnny either stole it or gave it. Ebbie said, well, before they brought my mother from, you see, Ebbie lived in Chicago, and when my mother died, well, Ebbie come down here to Birmingham, taking her up there. She got sick, and I reckon that she thought nobody couldn't take care of her but Eddie. And Eddie taking her on the train, she couldn't even sit up, and taking her to Chicago. Ambulance come out to East Lake and picked her up and carried her and put her on the train, and Eddie got on there and carried her to Chicago where she was. And Eddie carried the most important things and everything out there. So she said that patent she didn't know. Yanni or Gady wanted to.
You don't have any idea what kind of a machine it was, or?
Well, Charlie, I can't remember what it was. But it was a very important, he wasn't sure enough to know it. It was a very important thing.
At what age was he when this was going
Well,
on? Do you remember what year it was? Or?
No, I don't. Let's see. You see, my daddy died in 1923, and that was long ago. I was a girl. But he had that patent, and he had the blueprints of it. I can remember seeing it. That just said he comes back to Washington, maybe got it too. It's some kind of machinery was real important.
Yeah. When you say that Gady or Yanni stole it, what, did they take the blueprints of it or something?
Yeah, they got the blueprints. Whoever got it, we don't know who. But they got the blueprints and everything.
Did y'all ever hear from the government or anything on it? Did your mother ever get
No,
anything to follow up on it?
no, she never did try. Cause Mom didn't know how to begin, to do nothing like that. And there wasn't a lot of children interested. It's some kind of machinery that he had an invention on.
Did it have to do with farming or?
Yeah.
Sawmilling or?
Well, with some kind of engine something, I don't know whether that, what it was, the engine in an airplane that he had a patent on. But he had the blueprints and the patent. But he died.
Was this just something that he, was it related to some work that he did? Or was it just something that he thought up, or?
Well, you see, he worked with all kind of machinery because he had a gin and a grist mill and a sawmill, planer mill, shingle mill, everything, you see. And it had something to do with some kind of machinery, but I don't know this one.
Did you work in the lumber mill with him?
I worked, he had the gin and the grist mill and everything under one shed. And I pushed lumber through the planer mill, to make this here little one-by stuff with a turning groove in it, where it's fit together. I pushed the lumber through there. And I caught the shingles from the shingle mill and stacked them. Well, I used to stack shingles. You had to stack one like that, let the thick end be back and you tie them in the bone, the shingles. And the cotton mill, now, why they just run the up there and they suck it up, without having to pull it together. But you used to have to get in the wagon and keep that cotton pulled to the suction, great big suction that filled it, carried it into the den. You had to keep it the cotton worked up to it. But now, they just suck it up like that. All of us was talented a little bit, towards music. And I'd taken music 1 month when I was hardly 10-year-old. And I learned to play, and I can still play by that ear. And my daddy's sister, which was Cherry Marsh, every child she had learned to play something. They'd come to our house, and Warren could play the fiddle, and my daddy could play a harp, and Aunt Cherry's folks could play that. We had an organ, no piano back then. We had organ. One of them would play the organ, Ed would play the organ, Albert would play the guitar, Minnie, cousin Minnie. She's the only cousin I've got living on my daddy's side, and I want to go see her so bad. She just lives about 10 miles from Emmerdale, but I don't guess she'll ever take it. Minnie would play that mandolin. You know what a mandolin is. And Ed would play the organ. Albert would play the guitar. Well, everyone played, and they'd come stay all night with us, and we'd sit up till after midnight playing the music. Daddy would play that French harp. My daddy could like But I never did learn how to dance. I never did try. But my daddy could play the French harp and dance also. Now, and my brother Eddie could play a banjo. He could play. And where all this music of my family started from, why, MZ was going to high school, just pushing that about too. And there was a music teacher come down here. And we had an old organ, and Mama had given it to me because Daddy said it was well. In fact, I kept books for Ollie there at the sawmill. He lived right and run the sawmill after my daddy died. And I kept books for him, and I bought the organ. Mom gave it to me, and I had it, you see, when Emmerdine was big enough to take music. And she won't take music. And your granddaddy said, I've got nothing to send you to music with. And I told Emmerdine to ask the music woman if she would take quilts. And I didn't have many. But I wanted her to learn, you know, because she was eager to learn. Evelyn never did care nothing about learning. So Emmerdine asked her, she said yes, that she would take a quilt.
Yeah.
And she gave Emmerdine music, I don't remember how long, but I had pieced a quilt out of Wool-Darn tobacco sacks. I unraveled them, washed them, and dyed them 2 different colors, and made a brick quilt. And it was the beautifulest quilt I had. And when the woman come, well, that's the one she wanted for giving Emmerdine, so I let her have it. And that's the way I paid for her music, what I got out of that quilt.